Hello, dearest friend of mine.
Hello, lovely, beautiful, sexy wife.
Wow. I'm starstruck.
Wow.
Wow. I'm your beautiful, lovely, sexy wife. Hold
The
on,
one and
guys.
only.
I need a second. I need to turn the AC back on.
How are you doing, Erin? Let's do a quick check-in.
Okay. Rose Thorn Bud.
Ooh.
Rose. Rose is that I went for a run this morning when I was really not feeling like it. And I ended up having a wonderful second two-thirds of the run. And I actually cut off 10 seconds each mile, which was crazy. And I heard the woman saying in my ear, like, this mile was da 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 da. And then it was 10 seconds less the next mile. And I was like, what? And that made me feel epic. And this woman approached me at the end of the run and she was like, hey, do you pace yourself? Because I was watching you run and it looked like you were running really slow and like gliding, but you sped past me. And she was like, you looked so good in your like form. And she was like, I mean, I don't know about form, but you just like looked really good. You should have someone recording you run. And I was like,
You should have someone
whoa.
recording you run. That's
Yeah.
such a compliment.
I
Okay.
was like, dang, I really didn't think that was like I'm running thinking like God, I probably look like a and so to hear that was like thank you. Um and then my thorn is that man, I'm dealing with some body aches and pains, but it is what it is. That's life. My neck hurts though, and like I've had maybe three or four different kinds of massages in the past month and a half, and still the same way. So that's kind of crazy. And my bud is so many things. I get to see you in less than 2 months. I have multiple performances with my band throughout California in the next 2 months. I have a lot of exciting things on the horizon. So lots of buds. I'm in a field of
That's so
buds.
good. You're in a field of buds. That's such a good
Yeah.
feeling too. There really is like I every time there's something really big to look forward to. Everyone says anticipation of something really good is one of the best parts of the entire experience. And like the experience itself is also incredible, but I also love having so many things to look forward to. So, slay.
Slay.
But
What's your rose thorn bud? Best
my
friend, wife,
rose
princess.
my rose is easily talking to you right now. Aaron and I don't get to chat as often as we would like because we're both very, very busy women. Oh my God. I
Just
miss my
grinding
wife.
away.
I miss my wife.
My
But
wife.
my thorn, my thorn, what would we. Hmm.
There is no
God, I
thorn.
don't. Yeah, I'm having a hard time coming up with a thorn for today. Uh,
There doesn't
yeah,
have to be.
I don't. Yeah, I can't think of one. And I don't want to create one out of nothing. So, no thorn. And then, Bud, I'm going to Asheville next weekend with all my friends to celebrate one of our friends' birthdays and just to have fun in the mountains together.
Mm.
And then I'm also seeing Aaron in less than 2 months. That is huge. We're gonna go to a music festival. It's gonna be fucking awesome. And I get ecstatic every time I think about it. Also, I never have to step foot in a classroom again, and
Mm.
that's really fucking nice.
Mini
Schedule freed up just a bit,
celebration
so
for Evelyn graduating her master's. She's got a
I'm a
graduate
master,
degree in
baby.
social work.
Hell yeah, it feels really, really good. I worked my ass off for that, so I'm happy to finally have that done because that was a lot of work. So worth it, would do it again, but also happy that I don't have to. So here we are.
Yay!
Yay.
Well,
Well,
we're here to discuss surrenderism, which is a really
surrenderism.
wonderful song by Jay. I'll look it up and get back to y'all. Surrenderism, look it up. It's like a jazz song. It's really wonderful. But in truth, we're gonna talk about surrender.
And this topic, I think, entered our lives. I mean, honestly, like a few years ago when we started this whole journey of intentionally waking up, but also in particular a couple of months ago when Erin picked up the book The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, and then she
Shout out
said,
to
"Girl,
Alicia for giving me
shout
that
out to
book.
Alicia." And now it's in my hands. Thank goodness. I feel actually very blessed sometimes when I hold it because I'm like, wow, this woman I've never met who I know so much about and is, from what I hear, incredible, was holding this book and awakening. And then my best friend held this book and was awakening. And then I did too. And it's a really amazing book. I think we talked about it in our last episode that we recorded, sitting in the fire. But this topic of surrender is a game changer. And we wanted to talk about it because I know that it's carried us a lot the past few months in our journey of navigating life in all of its glory.
Glory to God, glory to the surrender. um, yeah, I I want to first just give an anecdote, because this is constantly so relevant all of the time. And just 2 days ago, was it yesterday? It was yesterday. It feels like much longer than that. But yesterday, I was feeling, weird. I was feeling weird. I was processing a lot of emotions. I started to feel really disassociated and kind of numb. And I was like, whoa. I did expel a lot of energy yesterday in various ways. And by the end of the day, I decided I'm going to go take a walk to the nearby sushi place, sit down outside, read a book, have my sushi, and walk home. I'll have that be like the one nice, just like restful thing that I do for myself that day. And I was like, okay, I want to bring a book with me to read. And I'm just like, I surrender to whatever it is I feel like I should pick up. And my drummer gave me this book, From Punk to Monk, a memoir by Ray Capo, who was the lead singer of Youth of Today. And he went from owning a record label, being the front man of his punk band, playing all over New York, all over the nation, I believe. Youth of Today is a huge punk band. And he then dropped it all, sold the label to his partner, and went to India. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to read this book. And I'm sitting at the sushi restaurant, kind of, you know, feeling a little self pity and like, oh, I feel so weird and numb and like there's no point to life today, whatever. I just feel nothing. And I open the book, and the first story in the book is that he's sitting on a train to go to Calcutta because he got kicked out of the first monastery he went to because he was too self-righteous and rigid and rude. And, he still had all of his Western spice that he was bringing to the scene. And the monks were like, you do better at this monastery. So he gets on a train. It's a 24-hour train ride. And India is quite chaotic. The trains are dirty, they're tight packed, they're it's intense energy, and he's talking about this in the story, and how he's sitting with his friend and the other monks, and it's already pretty tight packed in their car. And then he sees people crowding on the train, sitting on the ground, sitting in all these different places, or just standing. And he's like, oh my gosh, it's a 24-hour train ride. What are they doing? And the monk goes, they're too poor to have a seat, so they just have to go where they have to go. But he's like, you're so right. We should invite them into our car. And he's sitting there like, oh, no, 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 no. Like, I was just comfortable, like, just, almost to the edge of discomfort. Now you're inviting all these people. And so he's like crowding in on all sides. Him and the monks are like squished in, like sweating. It's so hot. And he's like, oh my God, now there's 24 hours of this. And he just ate a bunch of Indian snacks, like covered in oil, and his stomach is churning, and the toilet in the train is just a hole that goes to the outside, like to the moving tracks below. So yeah, and now he can't move, and it's rough, right? And he thinks to himself, first, why am I the only one that seems to be really upset with this situation right now? Everybody else is just like along for the ride, and he's trying to get people to commiserate with him and complain. And then he thinks, oh, well, it can't get any worse than this. The train breaks down for 11 hours of delay. And he's like, well, gosh, and he just runs around the train. He's like, isn't anybody going to do anything? And still nobody's like hopping on this wave of commiserating and, being upset about something that they can't control. And he realizes that. So he's like, okay, I'm going to sit down and just sit with the monks and figure it out. And he's sitting there, and his friend looks at him and some of the other monks, and they're like, you have all this wisdom. What are you doing not sharing it? Like, you came here, you have this wisdom, you have this knowledge that you learned from the last monastery. What are you doing not sharing this? The people need your wisdom, the people on the train. He's like, what are you talking about? And then his friend just goes, we need to share the Maha Mantra with the train. And he's like, you do whatever you want. I'm going to be here and I'm going to be upset. And his friend starts to share the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on the train. And he just starts singing, and everybody right away starts singing with him. Everybody on the train now is singing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra from their souls and spirits, and they're dancing, and they're all lit up. And finally, he's shocked. He's like, wow, whoa. In the West, nobody would have joined him. But here, everybody knows this. They're happy to sing along, and an hour goes by, and they're all just in this blissed out state singing together. And all of his, misery just immediately is like sucked away by the light. And I'm reading this story thinking, well, that's so true. And then I'm sitting there and thinking about myself and how, it wasn't necessarily the most sunshine rainbows of a day. And I'm like, dang, this is exactly what I needed to hear right now, is that we have, it's within our control the way that we experience life, because it doesn't matter that we can't control our circumstances. We can't control, if we're on a 24-hour train and it's hot and it breaks down for 11 hours, you're already on the train. Like, you can't control that. But you can choose to accept it and choose to meet that moment with compassion and with love, and find a way to make it less miserable on a physical level. And remember that this is just a passing circumstance. And I think there's a lot of lessons in surrender in just that story, because, surrendering doesn't have to mean that you completely give away your sovereignty as a human being and you just let the universe sweep you up in whatever it wants, because the balance of masculine, divine masculine and feminine, like sit back and listen, but also take action and take a stance. And when you can't take action and take a stance, take one within yourself. And that allows us to surrender to what is in a deeper way.
Period. that's a wrap on this episode. Thanks for coming. You said everything. You said everything that I had written down. That's fucking awesome. But I'll still elaborate for sure.
There's much more.
I love that anecdote though, and I think you sent that. I know there's probably so much more to that story, especially. Um, but I loved that anecdote a lot. I think you shared that with me in a voice memo last night too. And that was really useful for me because I feel like the word surrender has really been something I've been grappling with recently, and like just the experience of it. Like, it's one thing to say, like, okay, I surrender, but when there's almost like a little bit of resentment behind it, where it's like, fine, like, I'll just accept it, you throw in the towel and you like almost just give up in a way. Like, there's a difference. There's a very big difference in genuine surrender and like throwing in the towel and just being like, fine. And there's like, I think that you can still find that genuine surrender when you do that, but that genuine surrender is basically just completely releasing how you think it ought to be, and like any attachment to any specific outcome as well, um out of a specific experience. And that comes with both like pleasant and unpleasant things. But something that I've been really like working through on my own in my recent experiences with life is uh kind of like what I was saying. There was this superficial version of surrender, but when you're actually able to just allow what's happening and like almost invite and embrace what's happening, that's when the genuine surrender comes in. And that word embrace has been the very thing that has allowed me to genuinely surrender. Is like, I'm not even just letting it be with a level of resentment. I am taking in the present moment and I'm holding it with me, and I'm treating it with compassion, like you said, and like treating it like if there's a version of me that I'm noticing and I'm like, oh, I notice that I am acting really frustrated and from like a place of anger in a way. If I see that and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to be frustrated or angry, if I can approach myself with compassion and like hold that part of myself and invite that part of myself with softness, that's when the surrender really comes in. I feel like surrender isn't always like an external action, it's more so an internal state. And I think that's a really important distinction to make here, is like, what is surrender? What is that actually like, to surrender genuinely? So it was a great anecdote to kind of point to the experience of it.
I really love what you just said, how it's not an external action, but it's an internal state. Because I think is exactly that's such a clear way of verbalizing what it would mean to be complacent in life. I think that is like the external, maybe the more
Yeah,
external act of surrender is you're just complacent and not connected to, because I think then that kind of goes into boundaries, like not connecting to your own boundaries and what you need. Because as human
yeah,
beings, if we become complacent, we're allowing the entire external world to tell us what we should or should not be doing.
totally.
And if we were to just say yes to everything and everyone, what are we left with? We're like expelling all this energy all over the place because like we're just like, oh, well, they told me to do this. Okay, they told me to do that. And it's just like this external
Yeah,
complacency and distrust in yourself. Um, And then there's that versus, because like those are things that you can control. Like you can control who you're spending your time with and the kind of projects you dedicate your time and energy to versus all of the other infinite amounts of uncontrolled things and situations that may or may not arise in which you're there and there's no getting out of it. So,
Mm-hmm.
how do you meet that moment with grace
Totally.
and internally say, okay, well, I'm here now, what?
Yeah. No, I actually, that first point about like the complacency and how it's kind of like, it's not about being passive with life and just saying yes to anything and like letting the world dictate what happens in your life. I mean, to an extent it is, but like,
Yeah.
I think the important distinction here is like when you kind of act complacent and you just like don't have any engagement with the world, that's not surrender. That is avoidance, actually, of even taking initiative with what you're feeling. Like, we all have needs, and the point of surrendering isn't to not have needs or to not have a perspective or a preference. It's to sit in what is, to not be controlled by what is, to not base your well being on like this external world. But that also means a complete surrender to your internal world. Like, I have had I've had a tough few months, and I'm so grateful. Oh my god, for the entire experience. The past few days have been very good integration for that, and I feel like I'm able to breathe a little bit easier, but for a good chunk of time the past like 2 weeks, I was really resisting the internal uh, experience, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions. And I kept saying, like, I'm just gonna surrender and I'm just gonna let go and I'm just gonna let it take me, right? And that's great. That's such a good start. But, like, there was a level of resistance because I was letting go to get better rather than allowing myself to just not feel okay and to just feel insecure and feel scared and feel uncomfortable and feel all of these things. Like, genuine surrender is that state of being. It's an allowing, an embracing of the experience. Um, and from there, when you are able to embrace your internal world and your needs and your emotions, you can then act from a place of clarity because you're not grasping at any specific outcome or experience. You are actually acting from a place of contentment with what is, even if that's discontent. And that's why you should surrender. I'm not going
And
to tell you what you
that's,
should do, but it
ugh,
helps.
I need some back support. Hold on. I'm an old fucking woman. Okay.
She's an old woman.
I'm an old woman.
Creaky bones. So, Aaron,
Mhm.
why should people bring in more surrender into their life?
Because, okay, and this leads me back to something you just said too, but Evelyn sent me a fantastic video the other day about this man talking about how to free yourself from the mind, or maybe not how, but why. Like, why do that? And this has to do with surrender as well. And he was basically saying that the more that we allow our circumstances to reflect our inner world and we allow our preferences and our likes and dislikes to to be the story that we hold on to and to dictate whether we feel good or bad, the more we're a slave to our mind and we're giving our power away to everything outside of us. Um, the practice of surrender is so important because we are no longer placing our internal experience in the hands of everyone and everything that is outside of us. We're not allowing other people, other situations, others' reactions, other opportunities to get in the way of our innate peace and contentment. And I'm not talking about joy and happiness all the time. It's not possible. Even if you're the most enlightened being, I love this story that my teacher gives where he's with his teacher and they're in the elevator. He says, "Hey Dharma, how are you this morning?" He says, "Oh, my mind is feeling pretty depressed." And he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." He said, "It's just the mind." So when we say, "How are you doing?" we talk about what's going on in our lives or maybe how our mind is feeling. And as soon as we can make that distinction of, "Oh, it's just my mind," we can actually allow it to be what it is. Let me allow my mind to feel depressed rather than resist it and try and, do anything at all to avoid what the mind is experiencing. Even because that can lead us into these like unhealthy habits and addictions that pile on over time because we don't want to allow it to be. We don't want to surrender to it. And Evelyn actually brought up something recently where she was like, when do I just let myself be distracted for a little bit? And I think there's a difference between distracting and nourishing yourself in some way because it doesn't mean you're not sitting in the discomfort still, but it's, you don't have to constantly do the shadow work and question why am I feeling this way and like
Mm,
try to fix it and nitpick at it or like even understand, like the bottom of
yeah.
like the series of events that brought you there. It's just the full like, okay, well, I feel this way. There, you've surrendered to it. Now, if you feel, well, what would help me like process this is like dancing or going and talking to a friend, or I want to make a really delicious meal for myself right now, or go for a walk.
Yeah.
That's a whatever version of processing that feels good to you in the moment. And I don't necessarily think that's distracting. I'm like going all on all sorts of tangents, but I think the purpose of surrender is to actually it sounds really counterintuitive, but it's the practice of taking your power back and
Yeah.
taking the stance that like no matter what happens, I can be at peace with that. Period.
Yeah. Period.
Period. Even if my mind is upset, worried, angry, resentful, like whatever it is that's happening, it's going to happen.
Just surrender to
Okay.
it. Just let it be. Just watch it. Yeah.
And
Because as soon
then
as you
go
label
from
any
there.
like right or wrong thing, that's just like, it's such a grip. Like, it's such a clenching in your body when you're like, huh, I'm feeling neurotic or I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling sad or weird. As soon as you try to grasp onto reality and like try to change what is, change your state, change the circumstance in a way that is acting from a place of avoidance or fear, when you clench onto reality and you grasp at things, you're acting from a place of dysregulation rather than in a place of contentment for what is. And it's actually funny that you brought up what I mentioned to you like last week or 2 weeks ago about how like how much do you sit in the discomfort and how much do you like also take action to help yourself feel better. Like that's what I was really struggling with was like, okay, I've been sitting in the discomfort and now it almost feels like a little bit too much to where it's like I'm not doing things to help myself feel better because I'm sitting in the discomfort so much. And I think that's something that's more intuitive that you can tell what it's like, okay, I've addressed this. I've addressed this. I have allowed myself to feel this, but I can't wallow in it too much. And, you know, it kind of ties into the difference between surrender and complacency, because it's also an avoidance of joy and of movement and of evolution when you prohibit yourself from like engaging with life. And that's kind of like a not fully formed thought. So we'll see if I touch on that later. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to say is a second song rec for the episode. It's Paradox by this artist Ellis Dream. And he says surrendering to victory, and it's such a beautiful song because life
Yeah.
is a paradox, and like that is how it works. You have to surrender in order to find victory, and you can't surrender for victory. You just have to surrender and embrace yourself, all parts of yourself and all parts of life. And as soon as you do that, then you can navigate it in a way that's in alignment with your values, with your heart, with, you know, a place of service and wanting to change for the goodness of the world, coming from a place of contentment so that it's not skewed by fears or biases or ego. It's coming from a place of equilibrium and genuine, like unconditional love for what is, no matter what it is. And that completely dismantles any opposing forces towards your heart mission, because it's really hard for people, I think, to stay in an us versus them mindset when you are so open. Not impossible for them to stay opposed, but it's a lot harder. So
Uh, yeah. That leads me to two things actually that have been so, I've been hearing
okay.
them a lot recently. First, before I forget, the song is Surrenderism by John Kennedy, the other song.
Yes.
um, and in regards to surrendering to victory and what you said about, well, okay. So one of the massages, one of the many massages that I had recently, the masseuse told me to set an intention before the practice. And he said whatever it was to add at the end, this and more in ways that I enjoy. So let's say my intention is like, I'll release my emotional blockages to live with more abundance. This and more in ways that I enjoy. And he said to add that at the end because that is basically saying to the universe, hey, like this is my intention, but my mind can only conceive of so much abundance or so much healing that I might need. And there could be so much more beyond what I am saying in my intention that I might not even know. And my mind is going to limit me. So, this and more in ways that I enjoy. Whatever else that this intention might mean in my life, let that be too, beyond ways that I can conceive of right now. And it's surrendering to victory, literally,
Yeah.
because we might set intentions in our lives for particular things that might still be coming from our heart, from a place of like, this is my soul's passion, like this is my dharma in life, like this is what I want to pursue. Everything, every bit of my heart, mind, body wants this for myself. And even then there might still be things that come into our life, opportunities, people, situations that we might push away because it's not in the box of like what we wanted for ourselves. But it could have just been the thing that was like exactly what it was. It just looked different. It came in a different package than we expected. So when we're able to
Yeah.
move out of those boundaries of what the mind can conceive of, we're surrendering to our highest victory. And that might look a little weird. It might seem uncomfortable, actually. It might feel like the exact opposite of what you wanted, but you don't know unless you fully give yourself to it. And that actually leads me to the question I was going to ask. So this is where I'm a little bit like, woo, how do you know, right? And this is where the practice of
Mm-hmm.
surrender is such a practice. And in the book, in Michael Singer's book, The Surrender Experiment, he talks about how he the whole point was that he wanted to quiet his mind, and the mind is going to be like, oh, I don't want to do this thing, or I don't want to be around this person, or this opportunity sounds like exactly the opposite of what I want to do right now. I don't want to do that. And he wanted to quiet his mind. He wanted to let go of his preferences because it was exhausting to hear himself think this and that, and I feel this way about that, and I don't want to do this thing, and whatever. And he noticed that the more he surrendered to what life was offering him, the more quiet his mind was because he wasn't identifying with his preferences as much as he was just meeting the present moment. So, and that ended up leading him into such a fulfilling, incredible life and creating so much for so many people, a temple, jobs, a multi-million dollar programming company. It's just like incredible the way that he lets go, lets go, lets go. And at the same time, something that I kept coming back to while reading the story is yes, this is incredible. And it sounds like all I have to do is whenever my mind says no to something, just do it. Like if something, an opportunity comes my way. But then in my life, this is a really prevalent example for me now is I feel my heart calling me in a particular direction career wise and like, creatively that is really fulfilling to me and not draining at all. And yet I keep getting these different opportunities that when they arise, I want to say yes because I want to practice surrender. But as soon as I say yes, my whole body is like, no, no, don't do it. Actually, you know what? I actually just answered this question for myself. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is a live breakthrough, y'all. This is like talk therapy. I just realized my mind actually did say yes because my mind was like, well, Michael Singer just said yes, so you should just say yes because you should say yes to it. But
Yep, that's the model.
the body said no. My mind didn't say no because my mind was like, you should do it because blah, 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 blah. So actually, I just answered
Ah, the
that
shoulds
question.
and shouldn'ts. Love that. Yeah. And what if that element of surrender here was surrendering to your truth?
Yeah.
What if that's how you surrender?
And that's what I did. I ended
Because your
up,
inner guide knows. Your inner guide
yeah,
knows.
it does. The body doesn't lie. The mind will lie. The mind will tell you all sorts of things that aren't true. But your body, and I think that's also, man, I am riddled. I am riddled with like knots all over my dang body. And there will be times where I enter a space that I do not want to be feeling the way that I'm feeling when I enter the space because it's a sacred space for me, some of these like opportunities. And I take on too much. And so I go in and I'm not really giving my all because I haven't got anything to give in that moment. And that's been a recent coming back to my body and realizing, oh, okay, I think this is actually more me getting a little bit complacent and trying to people please rather than surrendering to what it is that I know is is kind of more my soul's path and the thing that no matter how much energy I give to it, I'm always getting energy back from it, just infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's interesting.
Absolutely. And I think that's like a good place to go with this conversation because the how to surrender, like it's one thing to understand it intellectually, but actually practicing that is a completely different ordeal. And it's not like a one size fits all thing, you know, only you can really know within your body what feels like genuine surrender. And it's also just really interesting, like what the experience of surrendering is like, which I would love to talk on that after we kind of delve into the how to. But I think a really big indicator here is like, what is your body saying? Like, first and foremost, what is your body saying? And maybe your body is resisting to a degree. Like, uh, great example, Erin's run this morning. She was feeling really, really tired, and kind of lethargic, but maybe there was also an element of her body wanting to move. She said, like, I feel like I needed to go for a run. And so she was listening to the cues of her body. I don't know. I can't really speak for you on that. But
I don't even know.
I think, well,
I
I
don't
do
even know
think that
either,
listening to
honestly.
the. That's okay. Honestly, saying that you do know is. None of us know what's going on, basically. But well, okay. I appreciate you saying that too, because everything that we're saying right now, like, take it all with a grain of salt, because we don't know what's going on and we're just speaking from experience. And this is all honestly just play and exploration of a topic without saying it is what it is, and there's nothing that is firm fact here. But I do think that listening to the body is really important, because as amazing of an instrument the mind is, incredible tool, incredible thing, it is also very limited because it is based on our soul experiences. Soul, not as in SOUL, but SOLE. Soul, like our only experience. And we can have empathy and we can learn from others' experiences, but we can't really know what we haven't experienced on the basis of the mind. However, the body has immense wisdom behind it, ingrained from like eons and eons of evolution. And so, learning to listen to it, there's just an intuition that comes through with that and can give you some indication on like where you're feeling resistance. And after taking several deep breaths and embracing and inviting what you're feeling, that's where you can then start to notice, okay, what is my mind saying about this? And where is my mind creating restriction and a model of how it should be or how it shouldn't be? Uh, and from there, start questioning. Start questioning and being like, okay, first off, is this really even necessary for me to feel upset about? Like, am I creating drama out of this scenario in a way that's actually necessary? Like, what would happen if I just let this go? Is it going to make a huge difference? Potentially, yeah. And at the end of the day, like, don't we all just want peace and contentment? If there is something that is feeling like a massive injustice on your values, address it. Part of the surrender is surrendering to your truth and allowing that and coming to a place of contentment in that being the truth and acting from that clarity. Um,
Hmm.
hard to practice, but I think a really, really important thing to ask yourself is, uh, am I, one, am I acting from a place of fear and resistance, or am I acting from a place of clarity and peace? And then another big thing to consider here is, am I thinking that life is happening to me, or am I thinking that life is happening for me? Because if you start looking at things as opportunities to work through, then you start you know, embracing everything that life has to offer and using it as a means to evolve as opposed to something that you have to fight and resist. Um, and that'll create joy or not, but it's certainly more peace.
Or not. Or maybe it'll suck more.
That's
Okay.
okay. I'll
That's
take it
okay.
if that means
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah. That was kind of a joke though. Cause like really truly that's not it won't suck more. It might at first. It just depends. It depends. But it makes me think about uh sometimes I wonder, Alicia, if you're listening to this. Thank you. Thank you for thank I just want to thank you for your existence and your seeing me as not Aaron, but as a soul moving through this world in the way that I like to see the souls in people moving through this world. And I say that because this is a really good example that happened recently, which is I I have been rapidly burning stuff. I don't want to say karma, but yeah, karma stuff, waking up like more and more in a really uncomfortable way to the areas in which I I am showing up in like not the best, most perfect ways. And obviously, of course, that's not possible to be the best, most perfect all the time. But there are some just like deeply ingrained habits and thought patterns that uh, have been brought to the surface through this dynamic and like living in a space that gets dirty really quickly, where we don't have a dishwasher, where there's fruit flies in the summer, and the parking situation is a little tough sometimes. And anyway, it's just it takes more effort to live here in a more balanced way because it requires more upkeep and things that I really like. If you'd have asked me a couple months ago, I'd be like, I don't have the time for that. Like, it's low on my priority list, and like, I'm too busy doing too many other things to actually like give that my attention. And it led us here into some conflicts and conflict that came up again and again and again and again because I just like kind of made the decision that like I wasn't able to show up. And because of that, I wasn't showing up and like it stayed low on my priority list. And like I just like, even though I wanted to be showing up in a more balanced way, for some reason, I like attached myself to the story that like that I'm not that person and that like I just have bigger fish to fry. Like I don't know. There's so much. It goes so deep, but this is relevant because this is one of those moments where there's a surrender to that comes to like I think what actually sparked this thought, Evelyn, was when you said surrendering to your truth. And sometimes that looks really ugly in the moment. And it came to a boiling point where both of us sent voice memos back and forth, which is like neither of us ever want to handle a bigger conversation over text. But it started to be handled over text because one comment led to a reaction, led to another reaction, led to another reaction. At the same time, we're both going, let's not text about this, but this. And then the other one was like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to text about it, but this, because it was like, oh my God. But the reactions were, well, okay. So that happened. And then both of us were like, whoa, scratch all of that. Let's talk later. Later, like, let's let that sink in what we both just said to each other. And when we spoke, the first thing that was said was basically like, we can just disregard everything that came out yesterday, but with the knowing that that all needed to come out. There was truth in what both of us were saying fully, even though it came from a place of defensiveness or maybe a little bit of victimhood or whatever it was. There was a place in which that was somehow, some way true. And that doesn't mean that like we are victims of our situations and that we shouldn't take accountability, because we fully should be taking accountability for what we need to take accountability for. And that's all that's really needed. But that doesn't mean that sometimes you shouldn't just let it out. Sometimes in a really messy, really raw way. But only if you can objectively look at that and be like, this is all the stuff that came out, but it's from a place of, that's not necessarily full truth, but in the moment, that's how it came out. And so honoring it and surrendering to the fact that
Yeah.
like, yeah, we got angry, we maybe like lowballed a little bit there, and or what's the word when you just low, like there were some low blows here and there, and that came from various places of hurt. And uh but then it's like, rather than being like, oh God, like none of that, just disregard all of that, like none of that was true, none of that was valid, that would also be another way of like spiritually bypassing the pent up, resentments and emotion, um and the value of that. Like, one big breakthrough for me was I recognized that I have a list of priorities, right? And she has a list of priorities. And we recognize that some of those priorities were on different places and levels on the list. And sometimes when that happens, the other person can feel like the other person doesn't care about them because their priorities are different. So they're just like not wanting to prioritize in the same way. And then it was the like coming together and being like, "Oh, okay, now that I can just like sit here and literally just look in your eyes, we don't even have to talk. I know that it's not on purpose, that you don't have the same level of priority for that thing. And I know that, if it was an easy, just like quick switch, you would do it. But there's also more, it's a little more complex than that. And it has nothing to do with me. And that doesn't make you respect me or love me any less just because you have a different priority than I do. And how can we still consciously try and close that gap a little bit and align our
Yeah.
priorities in a way that feels good for both of us? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets uncomfy, man.
Sitting in that. It gets so uncomfy. It can get so uncomfy. But I was talking to another friend today about like this challenging thing that I'm working through. And they were like, I'm so sorry that you're working through that. And I was like, honestly, I'm chilling. I feel so much better working through difficulty, knowing that it's the truth, than like conforming to this melodrama and of like of oh, this experience is so bad. Like even if there's difficulty, and that's valid for you to say like this is really hard and I feel really frustrated and all these things, to be able to take a step back and say like, okay, this sucks actually so much, and we're here, like let's just work through this, let's move through this. There's a level of peace that comes. There's just
Because then
enough
you've
to
let
make it
go of the
through.
outcome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
like fully letting go of the outcome, because you're not in a place where you're trying to make it more comfortable as soon as possible, because that might mean that you graze over things that shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like try
Oof.
to hone that in with my relationships too. It's like, let's sit in whatever truth that we need to sit in. Like, I think we can all sense when something is up, and that unspoken, unaddressed tension to me is so much worse than like feeling pissed off at each other and just sitting in that together. Because, like, especially when you're working with aware beings,
Uh,
I honestly I love sitting in discomfort with aware beings. I hate it a lot. Like, of course, there's some things that are so uncomfortable, but there's also like such a weird like bliss that comes out of like, I know you know what's happening, and I know what's happening, and I know you know I know. And vice
yeah,
versa. And we're just working through that human shit together. Uh yeah, it's great.
because
I
as
love
soon
that.
as you both can sit there and say, like, well, what's the solution? And you're both like, well, I don't know what the solution is. Then you're like, oh, well, that's cool. Okay, we both don't know. You feel this about this thing, and I feel this way about this thing. Is there a solution right now? No. Does there need to be? No. But we can be now mindful of these inner experiences that the other person is having based on whatever it is that the situation brings, or whatever situation that brings this up. And there really is something so juicy about that, because also you can kind of, it's so much easier to speak freely, I think, to say something like, to say whatever it is, like to speak your truth and understand that the person
Yeah.
won't take it personally. I think that's like the huge thing, is like, you can freely talk and say, you know, uh whatever it is, like, when you did this thing, like, this is how it made me feel. And because the other person isn't speaking, or like hearing that from already a place of like defensiveness, they can be like, I can see how like me showing up in that way affected you. And, like, I'm like, now I know to be more mindful of that, rather than being like, well, I did, that's not what I meant. Like, you shouldn't have felt that way. Because then that's just speaking from ego, from the place of like not wanting to hurt their feelings. But then it's worse, because you're not listening to them, and like all they necessarily need is for you to be like, dang, okay, I actually totally get how that's what you experienced. And like,
Yeah.
that wasn't my intention, obviously, but cool. Like, thank you for telling me that. And it's good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm even getting like squirmy, like thinking about it. Not in a bad way, but in like a, dang, sometimes it can really get to the point where you're in the conversation, you're like, cool, man. I don't know what, there's nothing else to say. It's just like sitting in
Yeah.
that fire.
Yeah. Hmm. Ah, yeah. I think we have so much more capacity to hold everything than we actually think we do. And you were saying something earlier that reminded me of this point you made in our last episode that we recorded, Sitting in the Fire, where you were talking about the interview with Michael Singer and how he was saying, like, the only thing that's really getting in your way is thinking that you can't handle it. And as soon as you say, I can, you absolutely can. And that was something that was like really cool to see in practice. I was feeling really, really discouraged with a lot of things in my life. I guess not with a lot of things in my life, but just navigating all of them at
Mm.
once. And my beautiful friend said, like, we believe in you, Evelyn. Like, we all think you can do it. We all know you can do it. And I really needed to hear that, actually,
Aw.
because then I was like, oh, I actually can. And I'm sitting here saying I can't. And I'm resisting what is. I'm resisting the fact that I have a really, really busy life. And it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And I can fucking do this. And as soon as you not only allow, but you invite it. You say, yes, come, busyness, come, frustration and fears and insecurities, come and sit with me. And let's do this. Let's just be together. Oh my God, instantaneously, your capacity to navigate that expands and you become so free and there's no constrictions because you are embracing it with love. You like I literally want to get the word embrace tattooed on my right hand so that I can just be like, yes, embrace this. Like, it's not even just a surrender isn't enough for me because I can surrender to it with resentment, but embracing it, there's like
A
love
more
that comes into that.
active.
And it's just like, yeah,
Mm.
it's like, okay, like, let me just hold all of this and invite it in. And it just opens my heart so much more to what is, which really brings me to a place of genuine surrender. So I embrace you. I embrace me and everything that that means, all of the imperfections. Ooh, give me all of that, please. I'll take it. Mm.
Give it all to mama. Yeah.
Kalila.
Yeah. That was a fantastic, I think, final statement is the embracing of whatever it is you're going through. It allows it to pass through quicker. And one little thing I'll add to that embrace is I was recently thinking about my opening and closing part of teaching a yoga class and specifically the wording that one of my teachers uses, which is, in the stillness, witness the thoughts, feelings, and emotions so you can let it go. And I thought, so you can let it go is a little bit of like that could come off as just let it go, just let it go. But that isn't necessarily what's going to happen. You can't actively let it go. You can't say, I let this anger go. No. Just like you can't sit down and say, I'm going to meditate. You might not meditate. You might sit there and just be
Damn.
watching the thoughts the whole time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Meditation is spontaneous. Letting it go is spontaneous. So the active
Yeah.
thing that you can choose to do is to embrace it. Embracing it, whatever the fuck it is. It doesn't have to be a thought. It can be
Yes.
whatever. And from that place, you can then spontaneously let it go potentially, eventually. But if you're
Yep.
not going to embrace it, you're going to resist it or you're going to attach to it. And either
Mm-hmm.
resisting or attaching will keep it there. It will keep it there when
Yes.
it's not meant to be.
Yep.
Embracing it is saying, well, this is happening and you have the space to be here as long as you're going to be here inevitably. And then you have the space to go when it's time.
Yep.
And so, yeah, letting it go, surrendering isn't, it's not like it's an energy. It's not necessarily a choice because even saying like, let it go would be a form of resisting because it would be like, oh, well, this has to go. This has to go. I can't have this here. Like, I don't want it.
Yes.
But as soon as you
Absolutely.
have
You're
that, then it's like, and that also just leads me to the Tao, which is basically like if there's anything that you're trying to get out of something, if you're trying in any way, you're already not doing it. You're already not living the Tao. So if you're
Yeah.
embracing, like, oh, I'm going to embrace this because then it's going to leave me, then it's already infused with that energy of I want it to go. And then it's already probably going to become worse. So
Yep.
I'll just leave it on
Yep.
that point. And it's so frustrating. It's like, how
Absolutely.
the heck do I not have preferences and desires? And you know what?
That's
That's
not
a
the
deeper
point, is to
question
release
because it's,
those.
yeah,
You can't rip the snake off the skin. You cannot rip the snake off the skin.
you can't rip
If
the
you
snake off the
have
skin. You can't
you
rip the
yeah,
snake off the
period.
skin.
See, you can't the snake the skin. Dude, you can't rip the skin off the snake. See, I allow my silly fucking brain to be fucking weird.
You
But
can't. You can't
I
do
thought I had a
it.
great point, and I
You
said you
do.
can't rip the snake off the skin. You can't rip the skin off the snake, man,
Is it
and
the
you're gonna
chicken or
have
the
your
egg?
desires, and you're gonna have to go through them, and that doesn't mean accumulate more karma by just indulging them when you can have discipline, but it also doesn't mean forcing yourself to be somewhere else on the path when you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You can't rip the skin off the snake. You will shed everything and release everything when you are ready to shed and release everything. So just be, whatever that means. Allow the end.
And when it's time, man.
Hey, Aaron,
Hey,
it's
Evelyn,
time.
it's time. It's time for another episode of Sacred Silliness.
Well, thank you for coming and surrendering and embracing our silly little brains. And
We love you. We know this could have potentially been super confusing, and it's possible that someone could listen to this and be like, "What the literal fuck were they saying the entire time?" I don't know,
yeah,
man. If
I don't
something
even know.
hits,
I have no
that's
clue.
awesome. That's so cool. If it doesn't, that's exactly what you were meant to hear. Why are you frustrated right now, huh? What do you mean you don't get it? You were supposed to get it. Sit with that. We're here to challenge you and make you uncomfortable. Just kidding. This is supposed to be fun. Ooh.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this a lot.
I'm embracing more whimsy
Okay.
in my life.
Whimsy and
Okay.
chaos. That's for
Whimsy
damn
and
sure.
chaos.
Same
We
thing.
love you. Yeehaw.
All right. Well, I love you, Erin. Thank you for
I
everything
love
that
you.
you offered and for all of your
444.
truth.
You too. Thank you for inspiring me and challenging me and sitting in this space of whatever is happening with me together as
Thank you for being a mirror and a playground and a sexy motherfucker for me to do this insane shit with. And that's it.
Mwah!
Chouse.
Chouse? Is that you saying chaos?
Chaos, but pronounced differently.